Good morning, everyone. Paul Ripple here with Fox 29 News Now. Hope you're having a great start to your Wednesday. We're following multiple stories that we'll get you out to, some developing right at this moment. I see Skyfox is in the air right now. Let's get you out to that incident. We're told that this is a shooting in the Brewery Town section of the city. North 30th Street, and that appears to be Cecil B. Moore Avenue. Don't have much more information at this time, but again, Philadelphia police are at the scene of a shooting. We're told this is in the Brewery Town section of the city, North 30th Street. And I believe that's Cecil B. Moore right there. Cecil B. Moore Avenue. Let me check and see if we have any additional information at this time. Looks like Chopper is pulling away. If we get more information about that incident, we will get it to you as soon as possible. Again, that was Skyfox over a shooting scene in the Brewery Town section of the city. The location appeared to be North 30th Street and Cecil B. Moore Avenue. If we get more information, we will bring that to you as soon as possible. You're looking live at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. You can see the Philadelphia Museum of Art in the background. We are following multiple events that we hope to bring you to this morning. Among those is this event. Let's get you a live look. See the hashtag there, Climate Action Now. We will take you there as soon as that gets underway. In the meantime, let's get you to some national news to start you off today. Another issue for the Boeing 737 MAX 8. Pilots in Florida had to make an emergency landing after an engine failure. It appears to be unrelated to two fatal MAX 8 crashes, but as Fox News correspondent Doug Luzader reports from Washington this morning, it comes just as Congress is taking a close look at the Federal Aviation Administration.
So what if you're a pilot, right, and you've been asked to fly one of these Boeing 737 MAX 8s from one coast to the other? You're going to put it in a loading facility waiting for the software to be installed into the planes. Now, are you confident? So yesterday, it appears two pilots were asked to fly from coast to coast in one of these MAX 8s, and they had trouble at takeoff and had to make an emergency landing back in Orlando.
And luckily, there were no passengers on board.
No, they were just
and everybody is safe.
Kind of deadheading.
Still, it's like something keeps happening with this plane, Doug.
Yeah, and look, by every indication, what happened yesterday is completely unrelated, but nevertheless, it is more bad news for Boeing. And today, Congress is going to be looking into this. The Senate committee is going to be looking at the 737 MAX 8, how it was certified by the government, and whether there is a problem with that system.
This Boeing 737 MAX 8 aircraft made it back to the gate in Orlando, but there were some tense moments in the air.
Yeah, departure Southwest 8701 with you. We're leveling off here at 2000, runway heading with engine failure on the right side.
A MAX 8 aircraft in the U.S. have been grounded after two fatal crashes overseas, but Southwest Airlines had special permission to ferry this MAX 8 to a storage area. The engine problem appears to be unrelated to possible control system failures that are suspected in the accidents. But as idle MAX 8 aircraft begin to pile up, Congress wants to know more about how this new version of the 737 ever got off the ground with federal regulators.
It's not enough to get the software certified. I want to know that the training on the new software, on the fix, and how it impacts the entire system of the aircraft is going to be conducted. I want to know that it's going to be more than, as one pilot described it, a 1-hour session on an iPad to get his training.
The Transportation Department's Inspector General has questioned the close relationship between the FAA and Boeing. And today, according to the Wall Street Journal, he is expected to tell a Senate Aviation Committee that the FAA will introduce a significant change in its oversight approach.
All right, we'll see what happens in D.C. today.
Thank you for that report, Doug. I want to get you straight out to the news that we started to show you earlier. This is House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and House Democrats holding a climate change news conference in Washington, D.C. Let's listen in.
The bill, this is about jobs. It's about good, paying, green jobs. It's about advancing our economy and our global preeminence in green technology. It's about health. It's about public health and clean air and clean water for our children. It's about defending our national security. The evidence is clear. The national security experts have spoken. This is a national security issue. And for many of us, it's a moral issue. If you believe, as I do, that this is God's creation, this planet, we have a moral responsibility to be good stewards of it. But even if you don't subscribe to that, you know we have a moral responsibility to future generations to pass on this planet in a responsible way. This bill is only step one. The Select Committee on the Climate Crisis and Committees of Jurisdiction, we have made this really, our caucus has made this a caucus-wide priority. The Select Committee taking the lead on this, but all of the committees of jurisdiction acting upon it, and whether it pertains to jobs or health or national security or our moral responsibility for the planet. But it is a Congress-wide initiative. So today we're going to hear from one of the champions of climate action as to where we go from here. I couldn't be more proud of her leadership. She has really been so wise, but also so determined to make a difference. Madam Chair, Kathy Castor.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker, and thank you for making the climate crisis one of your flagship issues in your previous tenure as Speaker, and now when we've moved from a select committee on global warming and energy independence, we've lost a lot of time. Now we have a climate crisis on our hands, and I'm proud to be chairing the select committee and honored to introduce Climate Action Now, H.R. 9, with colleagues and climate leaders here today. Speaking as a Floridian who boarded up my home with my family and fled as Hurricane Irma and its destructive winds and threatening storm surge was bearing down on my community a year and a half ago, I understand that we must act with urgency. We were lucky because we had time to get out of the way. But for too many Americans, there is no getting out of the way of the climate crisis. Flooding, torrential rains, extreme heat and drought, public health crises, rising costs and temperatures. This is the climate crisis. And when Americans see a crisis, we respond. It was with America's leadership and engagement that the U.S. led other nations to climate action in the International Paris Climate Agreement. The agreement was a breakthrough. After years of playing the blame game, the United States, China, India, and nearly every other country on Earth came up with a plan to address climate change together and take climate action now. And that plan has incredible upsides. We can create millions of good-paying, clean energy jobs right now. We can save billions of dollars in energy costs for working people and businesses right now. We can finally address decades of environmental injustice right now. And we can respond to the incredible groundswell of activism from young people who are demanding climate action now as well. They are the first generation to grow up in the climate crisis. Now they are demanding a chance to be the generation that solves it. So despite what the President has said, America will not retreat. America will not cut and run. America will keep its commitments. Climate Action Now will unleash American ingenuity and innovation to power the future. And the Speaker is right. We have a moral obligation to future generations to tackle the climate crisis now. We can do this, and together we will. I'm very proud to introduce now my partner, my chairman of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Frank Pallone.
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kathy. I just want to take a page from what Kathy Cass just said and talk about my district. My district was most heavily hit by Superstorm Sandy. And I'm telling you, there isn't a single mayor, county, state legislative official, and I have a lot of Republicans who are Republican who don't understand that we need to address climate change because of sea level rise and the destruction that we had from hurricane or from Superstorm Sandy. So I was very happy when we took the majority that we were actually able to have hearings in the Energy and Commerce Committee on climate change because Republicans refused to do it for the whole 8 years. And we've had some. We had one on the Paris Agreement. We have another one next week coming out on what state and local governments are doing. But the fact of the matter is that state and local governments can't carry this ball alone. I mean, this is, as Nancy Pelosi said, this is an abrogation of our federal responsibility and our leadership as a country. I mean, the president doesn't make any sense at all when he says he wants to withdraw from the Paris Agreement, because all the other countries now take up that mantle of leadership that the United States had. And it's not just an issue of helping our allies and being the good guys, it's also an economic issue. I mean, the bottom line is if we can create jobs, when we move towards renewable resources, we can build the wind turbines and build the solar panels and, you know, and boost our economy. It's an economic issue as well as a health and safety issue. And for us to abdicate our leadership makes no sense. So basically what Kathy's bill is doing is saying, no, we are going to take the mantle of leadership. We are not going to withdraw from the Paris Agreement. And we are going to do whatever we can to say to the president, look, you say you're going to withdraw from Paris. What is your plan? How are we going to address these climate issues? You know, we refuse to accept the notion that this is not something that needs to be addressed. So, Mr. President, we're saying to you with this legislation, we're not withdrawing from Paris. We want to know what your plan is. And if you don't have one, then we're going to move forward on our own and come up with things that we can do here in the Congress and in the Energy and Commerce Committee to address climate change in various ways. So with that, I just wanted to say I started out with you as an Energy and Commerce member. Now I'm turning it over to, and everybody knows he's the chairman of Foreign Affairs, but he's also a very strong member of the Energy and Commerce Committee, Elliot Engel.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to especially thank our speaker who's made this front and center. It's just so important. The New York City metropolitan area, of course, also suffered with Hurricane Superstorm Sandy, which some people call the perfect storm, but we're going to have a lot of perfect storms if we sit and twiddle our thumbs and do nothing about it for the next several years. Before we had the election, I got together all the members, the Democratic members of the Foreign Affairs Committee, to see what the priority would be in the new Congress. And overwhelmingly, number one was global warming, global climate change. We feel so strongly about it on a global level. So as chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee, I view climate change as a threat to global security and to our country's future. I also believe that the United States is strongest on the global stage when we're working shoulder to shoulder with our friends and partners around the world. And that's why the Paris Agreement was such a defining moment for the future of our planet. The countries of the world came together to face this global crisis, and at times like these, the world usually looks to the United States for leadership. Then came along President Trump. Instead of leading, he withdrew, retreating from the world stage. It's really absolutely shameful. We're already seeing the consequences of inaction, natural disasters, famines, instability, human suffering. So addressing climate change is a critical foreign policy priority, and it's up to Congress to lead. And we will lead. That's why next week we'll be holding a hearing on the dangers of climate change to our national security in the Foreign Affairs Committee. And today's legislation sends a message loud and clear to the President and the entire world: we aren't backing down. The Climate and Action Now Act keeps the United States in the Paris Climate Accord, renewing our country's pledge to address climate change head on. It's not just smart policy, it's a moral obligation to our children and our grandchildren and generations to come. We have to get to the day when we can look at ourselves in the mirror and know we did everything we could to save our planet. So, Madam Speaker, thank you. Today's bill gets us one step closer to that, and you can count on all of us here today to keep up this momentum in the months to come. Thank you, and it's now my pleasure to call on my colleague, Eddie Bernice Johnson, Chairman Eddie Bernice Johnson.
Thank you very much, and good morning. This is an important subject, obviously, and it's not an exaggeration to say that climate change is one of the greatest challenges confronting our nation. On the Science Committee, we've already heard from scientists about the reality of human-induced climate change and its impacts. Those impacts are affecting our economy, our national security, and our quality of life. The increased frequency of extreme weather events in recent years is just one reminder of the growing cost of inaction on addressing climate change. The Paris Agreement was a significant step forward in bringing the international community together to address climate change, and I was proud that the United States played a critical role in forging the agreement under the Obama administration. And we had American citizens who pledged millions of dollars in research to support this agreement. The agreement also helped to catalyze private sector involvement in seeking innovative energy technologies and other means to reduce our carbon footprint. And the Science Committee will be examining those approaches in weeks and months to come. I've had many visitors from the private sector community, CEOs. The CEO of ExxonMobil, as a matter of fact, has come to say that we're ready to do collaboration. A large research lab in New Jersey that we plan to visit is awaiting our visit. The Trump administration's decision to withdraw from the Paris Agreement is both misguided and ill-advised. Rather than pretend that the human-induced climate change doesn't exist, we need to do all that we can to work to meet the goals of the Paris Agreement, which this bill specifies. And I know that the members here share that commitment today. I thank you for being here, and now I will call on a member of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, Mr. Caston.
Thank you very much, Chairwoman Johnson. It's a pleasure to serve on your committee, and I'm delighted to have started with, I think, 2 climate hearings to start off our cycle. I'm thankful to be here with Speaker Pelosi and Chair Castro to introduce H.R. 9, the Climate Action Now Act. I came to Congress after working for 16 years as a clean energy executive. If I learned one thing from my time in the energy sector, it's that there are no economic and there are no technical barriers to lowering CO2. Anything we do to lower CO2 means we're going to burn less fuel, which means we're going to save money. This is not a cost to be feared. This is an investment opportunity that we'd be fools to miss out on. We have the tools. We have the ability. What we've lacked is leadership. Instead of rising to this challenge, President Trump ran away from it. Instead of harnessing American ingenuity, what companies like ours have done, this administration walked away from the Paris Agreement. American leadership is not about kowtowing to despots. It's not about declaring phony emergencies to build unnecessary walls. It's not about ignoring the single most serious threat to the existence of human life on Earth. From Normandy to the Cold War, American leadership has been about identifying long-term existential threats to the entire population and then leading the rest of the world to mobilize around a shared set of goals and values. That's what we need. H.R. 9 challenges the Trump administration to step up and show us their plan for combating climate change. I'm proud to be a member of the Select Committee, where we're going to help shape this chamber's vision of how to transition to a low and ultimately zero carbon economy. The Climate Action Now is the first step of many we will need, but it is an important one, and I'm proud to help this effort under the strong Democratic House leaders. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to my friend, my colleague, and fellow clean energy nerd, Congressman Levin.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Speaker Pelosi. Thank you to Chair Castor. Like Sean, I'm incredibly honored to be on the Select Committee. I'm standing here today because I saw what this administration was doing to reverse our progress on climate change, embracing fossil fuel lobbyists and letting corporate polluters run free. And I decided that I personally had to do more. So I decided to run for Congress as a clean energy advocate, and I spoke frequently about the need to embrace science and the scientific consensus that climate change is happening, that it is driven by human activity, and that if we do nothing, the consequences for our planet will be catastrophic. Never let anyone tell you that you can't protect the environment and grow the economy at the same time. We're doing it in the state of California, where we've led, and we can lead in Washington as well if we're embracing science and reality about our environment and our economy. And the clean energy jobs of the future, where I was very privileged to work in that industry for about 15 years. I'm very proud in the work that we did to grow a more sustainable economy. And in my Southern California district, as is the case across this country, we're experiencing more extreme heat waves, longer droughts, more intense wildfires, rising sea levels, and unprecedented coastal erosion. We must not wait to act. Ultimately, this is about the planet that we'll leave behind for future generations. My wife and I have a 6-year-old and a 5-year-old at home, and we've got to support solutions that are up to the challenges that we face, where, again, we embrace the science and the evidence and allow that to drive the policy. There's so much more we must do to combat the climate crisis, but H.R. 9 is a down payment. This is a step in the right direction towards setting that foundation for action on climate once again. Thank you. I'm so grateful to turn it over now to another wonderful freshman, my friend from Boulder, Colorado, Joe Neguse.
Well, thank you, Representative Levin, my good friend and colleague. They're wonderful freshmen serving on this select committee, and I want to thank Madam Speaker and Chairwoman Castor for your leadership with respect to the select committee and, of course, introducing this important bill and convening us today on such an important issue. I don't know that I could say it any better than the Speaker did, that climate change fundamentally is an existential threat that we must begin tackling head-on immediately. The science is perfectly clear. We have a very short runway to avoid very catastrophic consequences for our planet, and this moment really does require bold action now from the Congress. We've already seen devastating effects of climate change on our coasts, our forests, our farmland, and our communities. In Colorado, as Representative Levin mentioned, I represent the city of Boulder, city of Fort Collins. In my district, over 50% of the area that I represent is public lands. And so my constituents are certainly already feeling the significant impacts of this crisis, including increased flooding and erosion, rising temperatures, and faster snowmelt. Like Representative Levin, I'm a father as well. My wife and I have a 6-month-old daughter, Natalie, and so much of the work we do in Congress I see through the prism of being a father and thinking about the world that she will inherit. Our duty to her, our duty to the rest of humanity, really is to do everything in our power to leave this world better than how we found it, and to ensure that our next generation, that my daughter's generation, receives a planet better than the one we ourselves received. And our actions as a nation right now are currently not living up to this duty. The administration's decision to withdraw from the Paris Climate Accords and halt progress being made forward is severely detrimental to our planet and to the next generation. We are the only country to reject this global pact. We can and we must do better. Now is not the time for ignorance. It is not the time for shortcuts. It is the time for action. We must act, and we must act on climate now. And so I, again, want to thank the Speaker. I want to thank the distinguished colleagues that are gathered here today, and we'll turn it to our wonderful chairwoman of the Select Committee to close. Thank you again.
So as you can see, it's not just the entire House Democratic Caucus, but it's these talented, smart, young members that have been chosen to lead on the Select Committee on the climate crisis. I want to thank again Speaker Pelosi. It's no coincidence that you're also a mother and a grandmother and understand this moral obligation we have to future generations in this planet. I also want to thank the colleagues who are in attendance today. From the Select Committee on the Climate Crisis, we also have Don McEachin of Virginia and Julia Brownlee from California. We are eager to get to work, but the first order of business will be H.R. 9, Climate Action Now, that will be marked up in the committees of jurisdiction over the coming weeks and then brought to the floor for passage. Thank you all for being here today.
You've been watching House Democrats unveiling their Climate Action Now bill. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi speaking first, and then several members of the House with her. Thank you again for joining us this morning. I'm Paul Ruppel, and you're watching Fox 29 News Now. Let's get you to some more news. This is a national story about the yesterday. Another story about House Democrats. They were unable to override President Trump's veto, allowing his emergency declaration at the U.S.-Mexico border to stand. Yesterday, the House voted, and the results came back 248 to 181, with 14 Republicans voting on the side of the Democrats to support the override. This means the president can now move forward with his plan to shift an additional $3.6 billion from military construction projects to work on border barriers. Congress voted earlier this year to limit spending on such barriers. Democrats have not ruled out filing another resolution of disapproval in the next 6 months. Shattering records. Tracy Carrasco tells us how Michelle Obama's Becoming is on track to be one of the best sellers of all time.
So, Michelle Obama's memoir, Becoming is the name of it, is on track to become one of the best-selling autobiographies in the history of the world.
And that's such a big statement, Tracy. But is this based on sales? I guess so.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yes. According to the publisher, it has sold almost 10 million copies. We're talking about hardcover, audiobooks, digital books as well around the world. So on the first day alone, the book sold 725,000 copies. So you can see why this is such a popular book. But as you said, yes, it could be the best-selling memoir ever. And we know Michelle Obama also has a book tour going on right now, which has boosted sales as well. The only person who I think might be able to top her husband. He's expected to come out with his presidential memoir later this year, according to the publisher. So we'll see about that one.
That'll
might be a competition between the Obamas.
An interesting thing to watch. She just might outsell him.
You think so?
I don't know why I think that, but that could possibly be, yeah. Well, I don't know. He had 8 years as the leader of the free world. That's kind of hard to top.
Right.
I wonder who's on the list of best top-selling autobiographies ever.
I wonder
I was trying to find a list, but it's hard to find a comprehensive list.
And it probably depends on what category and all that.
Yeah, and with the popularity now of the digital books, the audio books, and so I'm still looking.
And remember, though, when it comes to former President Obama, he's written books before.
True.
And they've been bestsellers.
Yeah.
So, he's not new to this.
But all time. Two things, Trace. I like the new hairdo. Well, it's a style. Behind the ear.
The straight look.
Oh, yeah.
And it's more straight.
Thank you.
I really like it. And what was the other thing? I don't remember. So we'll have to...
end it there?
End it there.
Let me know tomorrow if you remember.
I will.
That's right. We will see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Yes.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you to Tracy Carrasco for that report. I want to get you to a developing story from this morning. This is one Steve Keeley's been following for us all morning long. Surveillance footage shows a speeding car moments before it plowed into a nearby home. Soon after, flames ignite, engulfing the house. Steve reported from Lower Chichester this morning with more on this incident. There we go.
How anybody could survive that, I don't know.
Pat Friday and her 60s friends say fell asleep last night on her living room couch when a car engine came through her side wall, Chichester police say, at 11:30. And then most of the rest of the Honda twisted backwards in the air and landed wedged up against her front door, blocking her way out. Right after it took out her natural gas main and started a fire that began to engulf her whole house, front to back, bottom to top. The mother of 9 grown children home alone while her husband Wayne is in Florida. So her best friends from across the street, Mary and Tom Moore, their son and son-in-law, went into swift action to save her.
She was trying to get out. There was flames in the house. There was smoke in the house. And I just kept screaming at her to go to the back.
My boy and my mother-in-law run across. We run across and got the woman out. helped her out of the house.
She was so upset. She just wanted. She was so upset that she couldn't get her cats.
Well, he was speeding, definitely speeding, the cops said. He come down, he had to be doing at least 80, 90 miles an hour when he come through that light.
Took out the fence, took out the 2 porches, and then went through the bushes and went airborne and went into her. How the car ended up the way it did, I have no idea.
The Moores had no idea there was a driver alive somewhere and even conscious. Neighbor Mike Green found him. Mike Green lives next door to all the homes that got hit. He heard the crash, then saw it later on his surveillance video. That's him you see in it running out of his house as he ran to help the driver. First tying a tourniquet on a bad gash and getting him a warm shirt as Pat Friday's house became completely engulfed in flames. And the driver was found thrown from the wreckage near his broken away steering wheel and dashboard and airbag attached, also thrown. All found in between the wrecked and burning homes. A miracle no one was killed, but Pat was upset after being saved, Mary says, because her pets, all cats, were still inside.
My son and my son-in-law were there, and they were going to help her, and they got into the back door and got her out, and then they tried to go back in to save her cats, but they weren't able to because there was so much smoke and flames in the house.
Authorities say the driver's out-of-control trip up Market Street started about a half a mile away, right off 95, where you see he took out this U-turn sign right off the exit, then leaked oil all the way up Market Street to the crash scene, where you see in Mike Green's surveillance that the driver flew through a red light. For now, no one officially knows why he was driving so fast at 11:30 last night, only that his driving could have killed so many people here, yet somehow didn't kill any. In Chichester, Steve Keeley, Fox 29 News.
Thank you to Steve for that report. That was an amazing crash, and glad no one else was injured in that. Our Lauren Johnson today. Today, Temple University takes action to contain its mumps outbreak, which has now reached triple digits. There are now 105 probable cases and 18 confirmed cases. This morning, the school will offer free vaccinations for students, faculty, and staff. As I mentioned, Lauren Johnson was at Temple University in North Philadelphia with more this morning.
Hello, good morning to you. You got that right. It's Mitten Hall. We are here in front, and at the front of the line, Lucia and Emily. Good morning, ladies.
Hi, good morning.
Good. Why'd you wake up early to come out this morning?
Well, really, we thought it was going to be like the longest line ever, so we were like, we're late, but it's not that long, but we're still happy to be here early, yeah.
Emily, why'd you want to be here?
I just think it's good that they're offering free vaccines, and I wanted to take advantage of having them available, basically. You can get a booster pretty much anywhere, like Rite Aid and stuff like that, but it costs money, especially if you don't have insurance, so, yeah.
And Lucia, what's the vibe on campus with this mumps outbreak? What's everybody talking about? Are people nervous?
I feel like generally it's okay because, if you aren't in contact with someone, you're probably not going to get it. So people are kind of making jokes and stuff, but I think everyone's kind of okay. But obviously, if you know somebody that has it, that's kind of scary. So,
are you around a lot of people? Are living in dorm rooms, close quarters, tight knit community here?
It is a pretty small space for a lot of people. I live off campus. We both live off campus, so it's not so nerve-wracking in that regard. But I'm sure if I lived in a dorm, I'd be a little more nervous about it.
Hearing that 1,800 vaccinations will be offered today, do you think students will take them up on that?
I hope so. Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. It's just a good opportunity. Yeah.
Do you understand, Emily, a little bit about people being nervous about getting vaccinations, and maybe that's why this has spread so much?
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I know it's been kind of like a big hot topic in politics recently. I think also the mumps vaccine is funny because you only get it when you're 6 months and then 4 years, and it wears off over time. So a lot of people haven't had boosters in a long time. So maybe that's something universities will start doing. I know Temple said that they're going to start making new students get their MMR boosters as well as the meningitis shot. So that's a good step, but I definitely think that's part of why there's an outbreak of it.
How does it feel to be at the front of the line?
Great. Yeah.
So you have about 30 more minutes? Is it cold?
Yeah, a little cold.
It'll be worth it. Ladies, thank you so much for your time. So 1,800 vaccinations they hope to administer today. Students, faculty, staff members, and all you have to do is bring your OWL card.
Thank you to Lauren for that report. All charges were suddenly dropped against actor Jussie Smollett. Police and the mayor are angry. Why prosecutors say it's an appropriate resolution to the case. Two guests joined Good Day Philadelphia this morning to discuss the matter. Not seeing the clip. Let me work back to that, but I'll tell you a little bit more about what happened there. Again, all charges were dismissed. That was the shocking announcement from the Cook County State's Attorney's Office in the Jussie Smollett case. A judge granted the prosecutor's request after an emergency hearing yesterday. Now, Chicago's police superintendent and mayor are slamming the prosecutor for suddenly dropping all 16 felony counts against Smollett. The mayor and police say a grand jury carefully looked into Smollett's claims that he was the victim of a homophobic and racial attack, and they concluded it was all a hoax set up by the actor.
I've been truthful and consistent on every single level since day one. I would not be my mother's son if I was capable of one drop of what I've been accused of.
Do I think justice was served? No. It's Mr. Smollett who committed this hoax, period. If he wanted to clear his name, the way to do that was in a court of law.
He did this all in the name of self-promotion. This is a whitewash of justice.
After the ruling, 20th Century Fox issued a statement saying, "We are gratified. All charges have been dismissed." The Cook County State's Attorney's Office says it did not exonerate Jussie Smollett, and it stands by Chicago police. In a statement, the Cook County State's Attorney's Office wrote, "After reviewing all of the facts and circumstances of the case, including Mr. Smollett's volunteer service in the community and agreement to forfeit his bond to the city of Chicago, we believe this outcome is a just disposition and appropriate resolution to this case." Fortunately, I did find for you the conversation from this morning. Apologize if some of this might be repetitive after I just told you a little bit about the case, but here is that conversation from Good Day this morning.
Thank you, Bob. 7:32. Empire star Jussie Smollett is no longer facing charges for allegedly staging a hate crime. All 16 charges levied against him have been dropped. And here's Jussie yesterday after this news came out.
I've been truthful and consistent on every single level since day one. I would not be my mother's son if I was capable of one drop of what I've been accused of. This has been an incredibly difficult time, honestly one of the worst of my entire life. But I'm a man of faith, and I'm a man that has knowledge of my history, and I would not bring my family, our lives, or the movement through a fire like this. I just wouldn't.
So, as you can imagine, Jussie's team is ecstatic. But a lot of people were shocked by this, and many are crying foul, including the superintendent of the Chicago Police Department and the mayor. So we decided it best to invite two guests to discuss this case this morning. We have defense attorney Shaka Johnson, also former police officer. And we also have Dr. Charles Gallagher, chair of the Sociology and Criminal Justice Department at LaSalle University. Good morning. Good morning to both of you. Good morning. Shaka, I first want to start with you, because it seems like when this news first came out, the big question that everyone had was, wait, what just happened?
Right. Well, I tell you what just happened was there has been tension amongst the ranks between the superintendent, Eddie Johnson, and the police department, and Kim Foxx and her office, almost from the outset. And what you see now is sort of the end game, the end result from that tension amongst those two parties. I found it very interesting that the police chief, nor anyone in the police department of significant rank, was even made aware that this decision had been made, and really sort of found out at the time the general populace did.
Is there a requirement, though, for the prosecutor's office to let the police know?
No, but it's common courtesy. And you would think that with the amount of face time that the police department, specifically Superintendent Johnson, has given cameras, the considerable amount of mic time he's given to this issue, they always talk about the amount of man hours and finances that were put in to do something like this and not even give them the courtesy to let them know what was going to happen, to me says volumes.
Well, before we get back to the police response, I want to talk about what actually happened and what the prosecutor's office recommended and how this even got here. A lot of people are saying, what about the indictment? He was charged with 16 counts. So what happened to all that?
Well, let's be very clear. An indictment is nothing more than a one-sided proceeding. Jussie did not go to the indictment. No one on his defense team was allowed to go to the indictment, to the grand jury. It's a very one-sided process. So just because someone is indicted means absolutely nothing. The state prosecutor's office in Cook County is then responsible for taking pieces of that indictment and the rest of the evidence and putting forward a trial.
So you're saying the difference when it comes to indictment is his probable cause, so that he probably did it, versus if you're trying to take it to trial, doesn't have to be beyond a reasonable doubt?
That's exactly right. And a lot of times the prosecutor's office will choose to not go forward for a multitude of reasons, one of which sometimes is the case is too messy and we can't see how we can procure a conviction.
Well, I think a lot of people can agree that it was messy from the beginning, and they also came out later and said that they wanted to focus on violence. But let's get to the police then, because you mentioned they found out, along with everyone else, the public, that this was going on. And this was a response. The police came out, the police superintendent, as well as the mayor. But let's start with the superintendent, what he had to say about this decision.
Do I think justice was served? No. I think this city is still owed an apology. I've heard that they wanted their day in court with TV cameras so America could know the truth. But no, they chose to hide behind secrecy and broker a deal to circumvent the judicial system.
So as a former police officer, what did you think of this statement, as well as, I mean, was it really a deal? It wasn't a plea deal.
No, it wasn't a deal. And I thought that, to be perfectly truthful, I thought it was in poor taste to say
Why is
that. Well, because I think who could know almost better than Eddie Johnson that you don't say, get your day in court. That's not what you say. Jesse Smollett said he wanted his day in court when he had charges levied against him. But if a state prosecutor says, listen, we're going to withdraw all of these 16 felonies against you, why would he not do that? Why would he say, much like superintendent is suggesting, no, I would rather you not withdraw the charges. I'd rather incur more legal fees and have a day in court in this media circus. Why would he do that?
Well, they have been vocal from the beginning, so he's staying consistent when it comes to that.
Yes, he is.
Okay, well, let's talk about the mayor then, because the mayor came out, and Professor Gallagher, I want to bring you in on this one, because the mayor, Mayor Rahm Emanuel, he said this is a whitewashing of justice. Let's listen.
This is a whitewash of justice. Where is the accountability in the system? You cannot have, because of a person's position, one set of rules apply to them, and another set of rules apply to everybody else. Indicted this individual based on only a piece of the evidence that the police had collected in that period of time. So a grand jury actually brought the charges.
So, Professor Gallagher, he mentioned the fact that it's position of power. Do you think it's because he's a celebrity that he was able to get this and work it out this way?
Oh, absolutely. This is there's the rule of law, and the idea is that the laws apply everyone equally, regardless of your social status. This is the worst case of celebrity culture, wealth and fame coming together to have a different set of rules for outcomes. There is overwhelming evidence that this man implicated himself in this hoax. And, you know, again, does an innocent person basically give up $10,000 bond? Do they agree to community service? I mean, it's really, I think the larger problem in all this and why people have overreacted was he used being a gay man, being black, and he used basically the racism, the homophobia that's happening right now in the United States to promote his career. And so the real problem is that, and we know the FBI is very clear with the Uniform Crime Report, that hate crimes have gone up in the United States of America. So now when someone is a victim of a hate crime, they're going to be suspect. And they're going to point to this actor, this celebrity, and say, oh, it's a justice situation. It's like Tawana Brawley all over again. So there's damage on multiple levels. So, and I think he needs to be held accountable for that, because he basically played the black community, he played the liberal community, he played, I hate to say the race card, but he used it. It's really, really offensive what he's done.
And I think a lot of people felt that way, certainly as this was playing out in the beginning. But when it comes to how this is being treated, because a lot of people are upset about how this worked out, but we do see this with celebrities. And in fact, I know Robert Kraft now decided he wants to go to trial, but it looked like he was going to have kind of a lighter sentence when it comes to this. We do see this happen, but it's different because this is a person of color.
Right. I think the thing is that there's always been two sets of rules in terms of law. Wealthy people and folks that they can't afford a private lawyer. But you're absolutely right. I think that there's two standards: it's being wealthy, and then of course being a person of color. I think that there's just a greater intensity of scrutiny. Mm-hmm. And but again, let's go back to this. If you are wealthy, you can usually buy your way out of more severe charges, and I think that applies across the board.
Okay.
What's different here is that this actor chose to use his race to promote his career. He also, what looks like, he committed a federal crime because he mailed something, right? So there's also other charges that might be pending.
That's going to be a separate thing. But really quickly, I want to go to Shaka just to close this out, because we're saying this. But how do we kind of classify this? How do we put this down in history? Because he's not been exonerated. It's going to be sealed, so we may never know why this happened. Right, Shaka?
Right. It's a draw. It goes down as a draw.
It's a draw.
It's not a win. It's not a loss. It's a draw. Quite frankly, I don't blame. Yeah, I sort of disagree a little bit with Dr. Gallagher, just from the standpoint of, listen, if I can get my life back, if I can start to resume my career, if I can stop the hemorrhaging of money that I have to pay for legal fees, and that is no small amount, I can assure you, to make this matter go away, forfeit money that I've already spent in the form of a bond, and give 16 hours of community service, something I've dedicated my life to anyway. I think I think many defendants might opt for this exact outcome, rich or poor.
I don't think it's a draw at all. I don't see it a draw. So it's a loss for the criminal justice proceedings and for issues of fairness. I mean, the man was upset he was only making $68,000 an episode. I mean, I have absolutely no sympathy for this man, for what he did, why he did it, and the damage that he's done. So it's not a draw, it's a loss for everyone.
Well,
it's
you know, one thing that we can call it, gentlemen, and it also starts with a D, it's always going to be debated. And that seems like that's just how it's going to be from both sides. For people feel very strongly about this one. I want to thank both of you, Shaka Johnson, as well as Dr. Gallagher, for weighing in on this.
Thank you. Thank you,
and I'm pretty sure, even though this part of it is closed, we will still be talking about this and discussing it as time goes on. So thank you. 7:41.
Obviously, a conversation I think a lot of people are having today in light of what happened there with that case. Let's get you out to, let's get a look at your weather. You're looking live at the Benjamin Franklin Parkway. It's 41 degrees outside. Dew point is 12, winds out of the east at 10 miles per hour. We've climbed out of the below freezing temperatures this morning. And you see mostly cloudless sky out there, and some clouds up there, but pretty much blue and sunny this morning to get you started, so we should warm up quickly. Here comes a look at ultimate Doppler radar. All quiet there. Your current temperatures, as we mentioned, 41 in Philadelphia. A little bit warmer to the south and east, a little bit cooler to the north and west. Your northeast temperatures. High point is 45 down in Ocean City, Maryland. Coolest point right now, Bangor, Maine, 31. And a look at the national map, 70 in Miami right now, 63 in Tampa, 63 in Houston, Phoenix 63 as well, so good amount of warmth down south. 40s here in our area, on the west coast 50s and 40s. Plain State's looking pretty warm this morning, 40s and 30s there, 30s in Billings and over in the northeast in Boston, but overall, and Cincinnati and Detroit as well, but warming up today. Our temperature change, it's 2 degrees warmer than it was at this time and this top of this hour yesterday. We've got winds at about 10 miles per hour right now in Philadelphia. Gusts to 20 in Toms River in Atlantic City. So the wind chill is making it feel like the 30s across much of the area, or a cooler 21 in Mount Pocono. Your visibility, very good, as we saw on that shot from outside our studios. Not much cloud cover to speak of on satellite. Here's your futurecast. Looks like we're going to be dry for a little bit. And let's try and get you a look at the closer in futurecast. See that rain starting to move into western Pennsylvania Thursday into overnight Friday. Looks like the city might stay dry, but then you get another chance at rain Saturday into early Sunday, and then wetter on Sunday. So here's your 7-day forecast from the Fox 29 Weather Authority. Sunny and cool, 52 today, and 8 on our forecast by the numbers. Philly's getting a perfect 10 for their opening day game tomorrow at 3 o'clock, 3:05 start. Play ball, 60 degrees after coming from about the freezing point overnight. Friday, clouds and milder, 70 for a high, another 10. Saturday, super 70s, 73 for a high. Even the overnight low is only going to be in the 50s. Can't remember the last time that happened. Sunday, rain arrives, 58. Monday looks much cooler. That is April Fool's Day, that graphic there, a little jester popping out of the box, Jack in the Box coming out. 50 for a high. Tuesday, sunny and nice, 54. Let's get you to some more local news here. In Delaware County, 3 teenagers faced charges after they were seen on cell phone video beating up a 14-year-old boy. The video was shared on social media. 3 teens pummel a 14-year-old freshman from Ridley High School behind a Kmart on McDade Boulevard in Holmes. One of the teens charged is a 14-year-old classmate from Ridley High. The other two, a 14-year-old and a 15-year-old from Interborough High School. They're being charged as juveniles with assault, reckless endangerment, and harassment. Police say the freshman may have been bullied since suffering a traumatic brain injury years ago. Parents and other teens are outraged by the attack.
No one has any respect for life or anybody anymore.
It's scary to see something like that so close to home.
Police say the freshman was injured in the attack, but it's unclear how badly. There may be charges coming against the other kids who stood by and recorded the attack. In Montgomery County, a case of bullying turns violent. A Pottstown mother says her daughter is being picked on after a confrontation Sunday. Someone shot up their home on the 1400 block, on the 500 block of West Street. The gunfire just missed Marie Samba's family. She says the attack was the result of her 13-year-old daughter Jasmine being bullied at Pottstown Middle School.
They started calling me all kinds of names, talking about when they see me that they was going to put me in a body bag.
They said the only thing that saved our life was the fact that my house is built on a hill.
The mother says her daughter has previously been suspended for defending herself against those bullies. The school district says they're addressing the issue and working with police. 2 very sad stories there about bullying and some of the repercussions, alleged bullying, and what can happen. Wish both families the best. In Burlington County, the search is on for a pair of pickpocketers who targeted an elderly shopper at an Evesham Township store. Police say the pair stole the woman's wallet right out of her purse while she was shopping at Home Goods. Then they racked up $7,300 in charges at stores like Apple, GameStop, Bed Bath & Beyond, and Nordstrom Rack. If you recognize them, call Evesham Police. That was the suspects in the video moments ago. Let me cue that back up for you so you can see them again right at the top here. And these are the suspects in that pickpocketing alleged case of an elderly shopper at an Evesham Township store. A New Jersey contractor who stole nearly $250,000 from 8 Superstorm Sandy victims is heading to prison for 5 years. 57-year-old Peter Rinaldi must also pay nearly $250,000 in restitution. He pled guilty in February to agreeing to repair homes in 4 towns, but never finishing the work. The Powerball jackpot keeps climbing, and now the lottery is on the verge of handing out one of the biggest prizes in U.S. history. And tonight you'll get another chance to win the $750 million prize. The pot has been growing since December. If some lucky lotto player does pick all of the winning numbers tonight, the $750 million jackpot would be the fourth largest U.S. lottery prize in history. The lump sum payout would equal $465 million before taxes. Overcoming obstacles. Loretta Byers has been dealt a difficult hand. She battled cancer and even witnessed her husband's murder. Now, after choosing never to give up, she's inspiring others with a new book. She joined us this morning on Good Day Philadelphia to talk more about that.
I can't wait for you to meet this woman. She's sitting on the couch right next to us here. You'll meet her in just a second. Now, on December 4th, 1999 is a day many people in this city won't ever forget. Listen.
It's the day beloved Philadelphia Daily News columnist Russell Byers was stabbed to death during a botched robbery attempt at a Chestnut Hill convenience store. Russell and his wife had stopped at the former Wawa to get ice cream after attending a dinner party. It's a moment the mother of two will never forget. Her life changed forever. The family went on to open a school in her husband's memory a year later. Well, things did not get easier. Sadly, she now suffers from PTSD and several other medical conditions. But rather than give up, she has written a book about her life.
Loretta, welcome to the show. And there's the book. Now look at the name of it. Wild Wisdom, a Warthog's Tale. So I think we really have to explain the title right off the top. First of all, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Yes,
Great to see you.
We're wondering, why a warthog?
Well, since when I was 20, there was the first time I went to Africa, and I saw a number of warthogs, and I thought, this animal is so ugly and so unattractive, but there's something very endearing. I mean, when they run backwards, and they run backwards with their tail up, and no one really gets excited about them. So I decided everybody needed a champion, so that I would be the champion of the warthogs.
Listen to you. Now, look at all the stuff you've had to address in your life. The murder of your husband, you dealing with Parkinson's disease.
As well as cancer.
Cancer. Does it addressed in this book?
Yes, absolutely. Just in the sense of sort of the progression of things that happen, because the point that I want to make is that none of this is, you can overcome it.
Yeah.
And one of the sort of illustrations in the book sort of talks about the fact that attitude is everything. And I think that's really true. One of the things that I don't say is I used to be in sales. And when you smile and you're on the phone, there's something that comes through the phone that makes people want to buy whatever it is you're selling.
Yeah.
So, so really starting a school was a huge project, and many people sort of said, well, what does she know about that? And obviously at the time, I've had a number of careers. This is career number 5. I'm not an educator. But what I knew was that in everything I've done before, many times I've had a blank piece of paper and I was able to figure it out.
Yeah, ending up with a school
right.
named Byers, for goodness sake. A lot of people have moved to Philadelphia in the last 20 years and didn't read Russell's work.
Sure.
For people new to the city, how would you describe Russell?
Well, Russell was very opinionated.
Oh.
Russell was very much a Republican, working for, he too had a number of careers, but the one that he's most well known for in Philadelphia was being a columnist for the Daily News. Right, yes, absolutely. And he one of the things that he did is he listened to everyone who disagreed with him, and he would try and come up with facts to change their mind. But he was always very respectful of people's opinions, which is something that isn't necessarily true today. And he was quiet, he was consistent, he got the facts, and many times he changed people's minds, or at least if he didn't change them, he created a situation where they had to say, well, he does have a point.
What do you think about a school named after him?
Well, actually, that was not my first choice. because I really wanted it to be called the City Charter School, because for me, the charter school was about the city. It wasn't necessarily about Russell. But my advisor sort of said, from a marketing perspective, well, you have to call it the Russell Byers Charter School.
And to help carry on his legacy as well.
Well, yes, and it certainly has. We've certainly tried to. And for example, the colors of the school are blue and white, and Russell's eyes were this beautiful shade of blue. And so, you know, it's funny, my daughter in particular doesn't like going to school because it makes her too sad, because it reminds her of her father.
Right, yeah.
But from my perspective, it reminds me of him in the best of ways, because hopefully what we try and teach and the way we try and teach it is the best of him.
And part of the proceeds from this book will help with that, right?
Absolutely,
That's
yes.
wonderful.
There's also a website, you know, that kind of delineates the things you've been through and how you've overcome.
Yes.
What is that website?
That's called warthogproductions.com.
I'm loving the warthog theme.
Yeah, well, you know, a warthog is a metaphor. And one of the things that somebody once said about a warthog was that they're very soigné, which is not a word that's sort of typically used. So one of the ways I use to describe it, it's a little bit like Audrey Hepburn with warts. And guess what? We all have warts, and some of them are just more visible than others.
It's a great book. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much.
And great to see you.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for sharing what you've been through.
You're an inspiration.
Well,
overcoming all the stuff you've dealt with. We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
Thank you again for that conversation this morning from Good Day Philadelphia, and all the best to her. Let's get you one more last look outside. If you get a chance, get outside and enjoy the day. It is bright and sunny out there. Looks like we'll be warming up to start the weekend, the latter half of the work week and the weekend. So if you get a chance, definitely get out there and enjoy the sunshine. Thank you very much for joining us on Fox 29 News Now. We're with you weekdays at 10 a.m. after Good Day Philadelphia. Try and get you out to any breaking national and local stories and a rundown of some of the most important stories we covered during the course of the morning, and get you set up for our newscast tonight. Tonight, I was just looking over. Let me see if we have the list here. I believe Jeff Cole is going to be covering the Grace Packer murder case. Joyce Evans is going to be talking about a lawsuit that's been filed regarding sex trafficking at hotels in the area. And our Bruce Gordon is going to be taking a look at some chicks rescued at a fire at a daycare. Almost put some students' little chicks in jeopardy, but firefighters were there to save the day. So please join us at Fox 29 News at 5 and 6, and then later tonight at 10 and 11 for the latest on all these stories. Download the Fox 29 News app to get breaking news alerts anytime, and allow notifications so you can get those right on your device. And of course, the Fox 29 Weather app has all the details on our forecast each day. We're about halfway through your work week. Enjoy the rest of the week. We'll see you back here tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.